And welcome to the Knowing Show. I am your host, Christine Marie. Y'all, we are getting into a very deep topic tonight. We are getting into something that Adrian and I both, I asked him, I said, what's on your heart to talk about right now? And he said, well, we could talk about this existential crisis. Okay. I don't think he really believes that.
I don't know if we're gonna really land on that, but we can talk about it. But anyway, keep going.
So. Adrian, I'm so grateful. I just love how real you are. So many people would never even joke about that, much less be willing to talk about it. And I'm excited. I'm excited for what we're gonna dive into tonight. Adrian, I have found from both of our conversations so far, there's something about you where you hold a very winsome presence, and you've got a marketing
winsome agency. What does that mean? Winsome?
Well, I'm gonna ask. Hold on. What does winsome mean? I'm gonna give you a legit definition. This is so funny.
It sounds good.
Pleasing, charming, or agreeable.
Oh, thank you.
But what's funny is
don't use big words with me. Use small words with me. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Well, so you've got your marketing agency for dental practices, and you're doing incredible things for dentists across the country. And it's been incredibly successful. But what I want to know is, who are you? Let's get some backstory on who you are, like your inner world that's led to you being in this place. You know, it was funny. I was talking to a man, 3 or 4 years ago, where he was like, people take one look at me and they automatically assume my life's been easy. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And so I just wonder, you've got a strong brand persona, even your lighting, like your background, you've taken the time to be serious, to curate the way that you show up in the world, and it makes an impact. And it also, because it makes an impact, because it's a strong brand demarcates, and people make assumptions and they make judgments. And so I want to know, who are you? Who were you that led to how you
this?
Who you are?
All right. Well, first of all, I have this lighting set up because I have my own podcast.
I know.
I was drugged, kicking and screaming to create this. I am not like literally. I buy my socks and underwear from Costco. Okay. I don't have to, but that's who I am. I wear shorts. I don't know if you can see it, but I wear swimming trunks every day of the year.
You do not.
And flip-flops. What? So I am not like. Sorry, go ahead.
Most horrible clothes. I said, you remind me of my darling. A year ago, we were walking down the sidewalk, and I was dressed really cute. I like dressing pretty. And he's wearing basketball shorts just that are horrifying, and like t-shirt, and I'm like, oh.
That's my wife. My wife loves to dress up, and she's super, super cute. And like we go places, and I'll be in like flip-flops and swimming trunks and an old t-shirt. You can't even imagine we'd even be together. So she's just
my God,
smoking hot. Anyway, all right. So I'm just making that because I don't want people to judge my really stylistic kind of like image here, because that's not me. All right. So I am, I'm just going to give you everything. Here we go. You ready?
Go.
I am 51 years old. I can't believe I'm 51 years old. I'm married. I've been married once to the same lady, which is a blessing. 4 children. They've all moved out of the home. Got them to adulthood without killing themselves. That was a huge green check mark in the win column. Let's see. Started this company 16 years ago after I went bankrupt in a previous company. Have a really great
that went bankrupt.
Say that again.
It was your company that went bankrupt?
Yeah, I lost everything. Yeah, and that
What
nearly. Sorry?
What happened?
What happened? It was in the credit crash in 2009. And I just hung on to this company way, way, way too long. And I used up everything I had until I just ran out of money. I was young, stupid. I learned a lot. But it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because once you've lost everything, you realize there's nothing to be afraid of anymore. And yeah, there's nothing to be afraid of. And once you're not afraid, you can make very calculated, unemotional, clear decisions. So that helped in this company. I also have a phenomenal business partner, Seth Daly. He's a great guy. So and great team, awesome team. So that's that. Personally, you know, my wife and I, like I say, we're empty nesters. Our kids just finally kind of left the house this last year, and they do show up mostly for money and food, but you know, they're off doing their own thing now. And so, you know, you turn to your spouse, your partner, and you're like, well, what the hell do we do now? You know, it's like you just raise these freaking crazy kids. So what are we going to do now? So it's been a change. It's been a change, you know, transitioning our relationship from parents to being alone again. You know, it's crazy. It's wild. It's been a good experience for us though.
So well, I'd like to get into that a little bit, if you don't mind, Adrian. The transition, you even talked about, honestly, cresting 50. You mentioned that was a big change. And then the empty nester side. I got to tell you, I haven't heard much conversation around the empty nesting. And even the transition to 50, I hear it more so from a female perspective, but even then it feels limited. So can you talk about, honestly, the reality that no one told you, that you were surprised by in those changes, whether they were respective or the cumulative effect of both?
Yeah. Let's talk about empty nester, and then I'll kind of talk about the age thing, the stuff I've been going through. So, you know, we had 4 kids, right? And anybody out there that's got a kid knows how difficult and how time consuming that is. It just sucks your life, you know, which is the absolute best thing. It's the most wonderful thing you can go through. It's the hardest thing, but raising kids is like that. But what happens is, you know, you get 30 years into your marriage, 28 years into your marriage, these kids leave the house and you don't know who you are without the kids. It's like you have to refashion who you are. And I got married really young. I was 22 when I got married. My wife was 23. So I hadn't even fully developed, you know what I mean? Like I don't even know what it's like to be like alone, you know, because I was with my friends hanging out and I got married. You know, my brain wasn't even fully solidified by the time I got married. You know, guys don't grow up until they're like 30, and all of a sudden their brains settle and like become, you know, static rather than mush. My head wasn't even like that. So it's weird because your kids leave and you're just like, you know, what the hell do we do now? So, you know, we just said, okay, well, we're going to work on it. You know, we're going to start working out together. We're going to eat out a lot. You know, we're going to have a good time, you know, and it's just this really weird transition. I've known a lot of parents that get to this and they can't keep it together and they get divorced. So we're lucky. We still like each other. And, you know, we have a super healthy relationship. So that's been kind of awkward and weird. It was really heart-wrenching watching the kids leave and move on. But, you know, they're still in our lives and they still call us all the time. We have really close relationships with our kids, but it's just like they don't need you like they used to, you know?
Yeah.
That's hard.
Go ahead. Yeah. Is there any, I mean, for those who are maybe in the middle of parenting and their kids are still at an age where it feels far off, do you have any advice for them in their relationship with their partner, husband or wife, or in whatever regard? What should they be cultivating? What should they be doing now if they still have a couple of years with their kids?
To maintain a healthy relationship with their partner?
almost
what you mean? Or with their kids?
To almost like their partner, but to almost like preempt, like, we know our kids are going to be leaving. Do we even have a foundation, you and me, anymore? Because to your point, I was thinking about that this morning. You know, you get married maybe you're married for 2 or 3 years. Maybe you're married for 5 years, but then you go 20 years with this buffer, built-in buffer of however many children. And then when they leave, it's like, what is this?
Yeah. What happened? What happened?
You're a completely different person. So what would you advise for people who kind of want to get ahead of that?
Well, I will tell you, it's not like our relationship. We've been married for almost 30 years, 96. Holy shit. It's going to be 30 years this year. So we got married in 96. So 30 years. At 15 years in, we were a gnat's freaking eyelash away from getting divorced. And it was this bankruptcy and a whole bunch of other stuff all happened at the same time. And we both had attorneys, and we were going down the road of getting divorced. And we looked at each other, and it was no particular individual's fault. We were both dealing with issues, right? And we just said, we're gonna fight for this. We're gonna fight for it. And I had to make some serious changes. She had to make some serious changes. But what happened is, in those changes, the main part of the core of what kept it together was we learned how to communicate really, really, really well. I'm very aggressive. She's not, right? And so I had to learn how to calm down and listen and know how to ask questions and not run over the top of her. And she had to stand up for herself, right? And be able to carry her own weight in a conversation, right? So we had to meet each other at this ground. And it was like 3 or 4 years of just shitty work.
Yeah.
We had a therapist, and the therapist was like great therapist. And it didn't pull punches with anybody, and just said, look, you got to freaking calm down, Adrian. Emily, you got to step up. It was like over and over and over again. So as soon as we got to the point where you could learn how to communicate, I just realized that, like, most of the things that are agitating, most of the anger or fear that I would have is so elusive. It's not even real. And if you can talk through it and trust your partner and really have faith in a process, you'll find that the thing that's causing you to react, whether that's anger or fear or frustration, just literally evaporates very, very quickly. And it's not what you realize is it's not real. There's nothing there. And the communication is the real part. That's the solid foundation. And, we both worked at it, I mean, so we both kept doing things together, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you have to work on your relationship. You have to, we exercise together. Keeps us in shape. It's healthy for your brain. She's super sexy. I'm attracted to her. She's kind of attracted to me. It's good, So that's still there. It's just like, we learned to communicate, and then we kept doing things together. So when our kids left and we're looking at each other going, well, what do we do now? Started having a lot of sex, which is great with no kids around. And you know what's funny? Yeah. You know what's funny though? I've talked to so many couples. They say, oh yeah, when your kids leave, it's just like you have the best sex of your life. So
I love that. I love that. Well, and I love it because it's laced within the reality of doing the work.
Totally.
You said a couple of things that I want to pull on, if that's okay. Because you said you have to trust the process. And I think the thing about that is that for so many people, we don't have a process for conflict resolution. So there is no process to trust. There's no process for this is how we communicate when we disagree. There's no process for I'm feeling really aggressive, girl, you got to step up, or even vice versa. Honestly, there's a lot of abuse the other way for women towards men. It goes both ways. And so understanding, you know, having a process, building a process. And so can you talk a little bit about that? Do you have an actual, like when you say trust the process, are you talking about something perhaps just more in general out of the work you guys have done personally, or do you guys actually have a framework for conflict resolution?
The simple solution that seemed to be like the tactic that we would use that was kind of foundational to that was a couple things. One is using I feel statements, because I feel, right? You're speaking about the feelings that you have, and typically what happens is when you don't use I feel statements, you're making declarative statements of like foundational reality, but you're not, right? The reality is that you're in an emotional state, and if you can speak from an emotional state, the person you're communicating with realizes that you're not making a declarative statement about them. You're just talking about your feelings. Okay. So we would use I feel statements. And then at the end of the statement, we would say, what did you hear me say? Because when I would say something to my wife, she wouldn't freaking hear, like she heard something else. Like it was the craziest thing. Right? We would sit down, our therapist is right there in between us. And I would say, I feel like blah, blah, blah. What did you hear me say? And she would repeat back something that I didn't say.
Right.
And that's not because she's crazy. It's because there's a lot going on, right? There's a lot going on. There's a lot of shit underneath the water or below, you know, underneath that's subtext that she's reading into my statement. So she had to like start removing like feelings that were influencing what I was actually saying. And I was having to like slow down and say, I feel, what did you hear me say? So when we did this for like 18 months of like constantly practicing this. And we just got to the point where, you know, we just started like knowing how to communicate. I mean, it was like that simple. I mean, it sounds simple, but it's not. It's actually really hard.
It is so hard. I love what you just said, Adrian. And for those of y'all listening, I cannot recommend this process more highly. Leading with I feel. And Adrian, it goes, again, it doesn't matter the gender. I think, well, I'm sure that there's more tendencies for men versus women, right? However, I actually come from the position with my darling where he is continuously reminding me, lead with I feel, lead with I feel, because I intellectualize, and my MO is still not to drop into my heart and lead with, this is how I'm feeling, because the right hemisphere of the brain and the left hemisphere of the brain operate so radically different that if we don't know how to listen to both and honor both, we're going to be emotionally charged with intellectual arguments that at the end of the day, because we're emotionally charged, they get twisted. And then when the other person speaks, we're emotionally listening and our logical brain can't actually really be at the forefront. So to your point about your wife, her feelings are interpreting what you're saying and therefore skewing it all entirely. So if we don't
go ahead. Can I just piggyback on that? So I would intellectualize a lot as well. And so using these I feel statements was really difficult for me because I wanted to argue. I wanted to logically make sense. I wanted to win the argument. I wanted to prove my point, yada, yada, yada. What I realized is that intellectualizing anything, at least for me, was basically a way in which I didn't have to concede and really solve the problem. Intellectualizing an issue is a way to dodge having to do the hard work. You know what I mean? So, and the hard work is really just like, you know, you have to give in. You have to give part of yourself and what you believe to this other person, and they give a little bit. And then you realize that what you gave away really wasn't that important anyway. You don't realize it till after the fact, though. You know, yeah, I remember working on this and saying, I can't say that I'm willing to give up. I'm not willing to give up this space, this thing that I have, right? Whatever we're talking. I'm unwilling to concede this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would intellectualize and argue for the point, whatever the point might be. And I eventually remember going, you know what? I'm just going to concede. And as soon as I would concede, and then she wouldn't take advantage of me conceding, but she would come take her step towards me and whatever we were dealing with, I realized that what I conceded had no meaning at all anyway. It didn't mean anything. It felt like it was important when I had it, but when I gave it up, it wasn't something that really had any meaning. So it's like it's kind of like you just get to the point where it's like, you know what, I really am not as cool as I thought I was, and you know, I should just stop talking.
Adrian, I love this. I was just chatting with somebody about this very thing. You know, so many people are not this honest. And I think because of that, we're not able to pass down what we know now. We're not able to really help each other. My former husband and I, once we got to the end of the relationship, and I was so beyond devastated that as my family tried to help, they were missing 10 years of context because I never shared anything. And same with his family. Nobody had any idea. And so it's like, man, what if we were to speak with the type of honesty that you have? I want to ask, Adrian, like, what are the qualities or narratives even that you run into that are temptation, effectively buttressing up your willingness to share? Like, has that always been the case, this ability to really be vulnerable? Well, not even, I think there's a difference between vulnerability and authenticity. I feel like you're very, very authentic. It's not like you're speaking from a vulnerable, wounded place, maybe, but you're being just so genuine. So I'd really love to know, you know, what are the temptations that you have to push through in order to be able to be authentic?
So, what I notice it's not necessarily temptations. I think of temptations, I think of things like, you know, lusting after other women and things like that. You know, that's what comes to my mind when I think of temptations. That's not the problem for me, or other types of temptations like money or greed or any of that kind of stuff. Where things happen in the relationship that begin to create a fracture, right? Is I'll have a feeling of agitation. And it will be a feeling of agitation related to my wife, let's say, okay? And I won't know why I'm agitated, but I know I'm agitated. And then I'll have thoughts of like, I don't want to be around her. It's just frustrating. It's just annoying me, you know, or whatever it might be, right? But I'll have a feeling and I won't understand where the feeling is being generated from. Okay. And then I'll have thoughts that kind of like generate from that feeling. And it's hard for me to slow down and recognize that it's even happening. And so my wife will look at me and go, something's up. What's up with you? And I'll be like, nothing. What are you talking about? Nothing's up with me. And we'll have that freaking conversation. No, something's going on. You're like off. And I won't notice it. And then what I have to do is I have to go sit down and I have to go, is there something freaking wrong with me? Oh, I can see it. Oh, I see it. Okay. I'm agitated. It's that thing. I'm nervous about something. I'm anxious about a conversation. I'm anxious about something happening in my life. And then what I have to do is I have to realize that all that stuff is just bullshit and I got to go meditate. And I have to like work the anxiety out of my body. And then I come back and I'm like, you're right. I was off. Here's why I was off. I figured it out. I'm good. It's all inner work.
Yeah.
That's the thing that happens to me more often than anything. So it's not like bold. It's not like I'm walking down the street and I'm like, oh, you know, I am, I'm going to steal my neighbor's car, or I'm tempted to lust after this. Like, it's like, that's not the problem. It's this like really, really soft, subtle agitation. And I don't even freaking recognize it until it's like caused some problems in the relationship. I'm not listening. I'm not asking questions like I typically do. I'm carrying a little bit of agitation and I don't recognize it, but she does. That's the kind of stuff that happens. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the first thing that came to mind.
That was so helpful. So in one sense, the things that prevent authenticity, so the definition of emotional intelligence begins with to be aware, the ability to be aware of, then understand, control, and then convey emotions. And so that first step of just learning to be aware, it's like literally paying attention to we talked about this earlier, our cultivation of the human intelligence includes and is beyond intellectual intelligence. We've been so fixated on that as a culture since, pre-K, you're cultivating your intellect. But the emotional intelligence has received such little honor that now it's like, oh gosh, how do I even learn to be able to be in tune with my physical body, what my physical body is like telling me? There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's written by a Jonathan Bessel-van-der-Kolk, and he talks
I've read parts of it.
The body stores data. And so our bodies can have a reaction before our mind even intellectually is aware of it. So it's the emotional awareness of, oh, my physical body is reacting to something. What is happening? So I love that you gave the example of literally pulling aside. I had this little like 3-step process that I would go through as I was really starting to first figure out how to know what's going on inside of me. And it was just first slow all the way down. Usually, honestly, if I was in a group context and I sensed that something was off and I was starting to get triggered, I would literally go just to the restroom and I would just take a moment and pause. And actually, I would either journal on my phone or just literally close my eyes. And then the second thing is just leaning into that discomfort, the very thing that we are tempted to run away from and ignore and suppress because that's our habit. Maybe that's our current relationship with emotions. But leaning into the emotion and then asking why, because you brought this up, you said it's effectively tied to something that happened a while ago. And so because of how the past colors our ability to see in the present moment, we're ending up fighting the people around us when really the pain is way back there.
So you're describing a type of therapy that I went through called internal family systems therapy. And this is kind of like taken the world by storm over the last couple decades. Are you familiar with it? Have we talked about it?
No, but it was the first therapeutic process that I went through, and it was amazing.
I took to it like immediately. It really made a lot of sense. But your body is the score, or whatever the name of that title is, the book, is basically just explaining that we archive in our body trauma, and trauma is outside of time and space. So it doesn't know how old it is or when it happened. And it plays in this space where, what?
I've never heard it said that way. Trauma is outside of time and space, and it never knows.
It doesn't. It doesn't know how old it is. So if you're hurt when you're 5 by somebody and it's really traumatizing, that hurt and that pain is still there, and it thinks it's 5 years old when you're 50. It doesn't age with you. And so when you go back to it and you find it, it's still 5 years old, and you have to bring it into the present, right? And that whole process is really kind of excruciating. But I want to just riff on one thing. One of the, I think, most important things that I've learned in my life is what you mentioned, which is that it's like we're in this freaking place, right? We're on this planet in the middle of a freaking solar system, in the middle of nowhere. Like, we don't know why we show up. We try to explain it through religion and myth and so forth. But I mean, the reality is we have no freaking clue why we're here. Okay. We can say we know, but ultimately deep down, it's a mystery. And we have to give it meaning. Okay. But what I've noticed is that in my life, when I have struggled to work through something, whether that be psychological, whether that be trauma, um, whatever it might be, I've found that the only way to find peace is to go through the pain. You have to go through the pain. If something is terrifying, that is the signpost of where you're supposed to go. And I've talked to a lot of people. I have people in my family who are like, oh, you know, I have a brother-in-law who overdosed, right? And horrible, just absolutely horrible thing. In its prime, overdosed, okay? There are people in my family who cannot even think about it because it's too terrifying. And I'm like, well, that's the place you're supposed to go. You can't get through it. You can't find peace unless you go into the pain, in through what is most terrifying and fearful and hurtful. That's how the body heals, right? So you said something to that fact that, and I don't know the word that you used, but you talked about leaning into it. And I have found that to be absolutely the way for me to find my direction in life, is to not be afraid to go into the dark, kind of thing.
So good. The concept posited by Jordan Peterson. I know he's today aligning himself in political ways where he never once used to, and so he was kind of more well accepted. But he had this concept years ago about the concept of if you stare into the abyss long enough, you will eventually see the light. And it's akin to the Christ story of Christ didn't just die, but he went into the gates of hell to get the keys of redemption. So we have to actually exist in the pain long enough to then secure the redemption on the other side.
Sure.
Because otherwise you remain stuck, you know, and all you see is the abyss. All you see is the darkness. All you see is death. And you know, there's so many metaphors. It's like the metamorphosis of the butterfly. It's the from death to life, and even the pain of giving. You know, there's an allegories for
it's all there.
Yeah,
it's all there. There's a quote, I think it was Nietzsche, I think, that says, if you stare into the abyss long enough, it stares back at you.
Yeah.
I think maybe that might be Nietzsche or somebody, but it was a philosopher.
Sure. I want to ask two questions, and for those of you who are listening, feel free to ask questions. I've got two questions from a dear friend of the Knowing Show. The very first question he asks is, what are the main tools for rebuilding personal composition after a moment of crisis in business bankruptcy? What factors of the inner and outer world help in the process of personal recomposition? Beautiful question.
Whoever asked that question is way above my intelligence level. I got to think about that question a little bit to figure out what he's saying. I can only tell you what happened with me. So I lost everything. I lost 2 homes. I lost my car. I lost everything. And I moved in with my 4 little kids and my wife into my mother-in-law's apartment or house, which was just, am I allowed to say the F word? Because I just about dropped the F word. It was horrible. It was horrible. Okay. I didn't say it, but I was going to. Anyway, I was, you know, I was embarrassed, horribly embarrassed. I was on food stamps for a few months while we were making the transition. I would pull that damn food stamp card out at the grocery store, and I knew people could see me pulling out a food stamp card, and I just felt like a total, complete failure. And I just knew that if I leaned into and believed these feelings of embarrassment were real, right? And that I was a failure, that it would be a self-proclaiming prophecy, that it would actually be the truth. And so I just believed that this was the best experience that could happen to me, and that the pain and the frustration and the anxiety and the shock of all of that was weakness leaving my body, and allowing me to strengthen and move on. And I had enough faith that the universe, God, whatever your religious might be, or if you're not religious, I believe that there's at least some universal consciousness, something out there that's beyond us. I believe that it is fundamentally good, and that if I did what I knew what was right in terms of my personal life and was kind and honest and worked hard, that I would be led out of it. And that's what happened. You know, the next thing that happened, I called we went bankrupt. I moved into my freaking mother-in-law's place, and I called my buddy and I said, dude, I'm out, man. I got cleaned out. I've got nothing. I can't go work for somebody else. I got to do something myself. And I said, you know, right as I was closing down shop with that business that went bad, I figured out how to get a business to show up on the front page of Google in the maps section, because the map section had just kind of like been included in the Google search results. And he says, yeah, that's cool. The company I work with is out of business too. They just closed shop. We're a dental marketing company, and they oversold print mail. The economy turned and the guy went bankrupt. He says, I have 3,500 dentists that I've got all their contact information. I said, can we use the list? He's like, yeah, the guy doesn't care. I said, all right, man, let's start calling and selling the service. And that's how we started. We didn't start the company until it was the only thing that I could do to try and figure out how to put food on the table. If that product came to me today, okay, and I don't, we are not in want of money. We are healthy. We're paying our bills. We're good. Okay. If somebody came to me today and said, hey, I got this cool little product. It'll help get a business on the front page of Google. I am not in a position right now to need it so bad that I would be willing to like jump in, and I'd probably pass on the opportunity. But back then when it happened, it was the only option. There was nothing else that I knew that might be able to put food on the table. And so we just willed it into existence because it was the only thing we had. Now, it could have failed, and that's fine. But if it would have failed, if I'd have failed a second time, I sure as shit wouldn't have failed the third time, right? You just learn so much when you fail, right? Matter of fact, when you go into business, you should be looking to fail as soon as you possibly can. As soon as you fail, you're like, I got it out of the way. It's going to happen. You know
it's like what you were saying earlier. When you've lost everything, you stop being afraid.
Yeah, you're not afraid any longer. No.
You just gave me chills. Adrian, you gave me chills because I need to fail. I need to fail. Like, I just know it. I know that I would be more brave in business. I would be more brave if I wasn't trying to not fail.
Take more risks.
Yeah.
Take more risks.
Oh my gosh, my darling has this analogy that it's been so good for me. He's so good for me. He's like, hit 500 golf balls. Every swing, every hit, it's just another golf ball, rather than I'm going to spend 6 months doing this perfect launch and having this perfect product, because that's what I will do. And rather, it's just a golf ball. It's just another golf ball. And so, and maybe 5 land, maybe 20 do. You know what I mean? What's your conversion rate? I don't know. But the thing that's so cool about that is that you've actually, in the swinging of the ball and shooting it out, you're unattached to the outcome. It's the swing and the process. I told him this the other day. I was like, man, I need to put way more value in the process and not so much in the outcome. Because if I value the process and the cultivation, then outcome can be big or small. And it's almost what you were saying. Like, you were like, all right, let's just freaking do this because we just have to. And it wasn't so much out of that, like, you'd already lost it, you know?
Yeah.
Man, it's
no
not going
risk.
to get than this. Yeah. So good. So for those who have not lost everything, how do we cultivate that mindset?
Cultivate a mindset of not being afraid, of being being willing to fail? Well, that's, I think, since then, I mean, we've been in business for 16 years, and there have been a dozen things that we have done over the course of 16 years that have totally failed. And that's helped us to kind of like refine and align and get closer and closer to kind of who we are. And so it just wasn't the entire company failed, right? I mean, total catastrophic failure that I had in my previous company was me losing everything. And a lot of the reasons why that happens, because I was just stupid. It wasn't working what I was doing, and I hung on for 2 years too long. I just tried to keep it going, and it wouldn't go. You know what I mean? And then the market took a turn. So in business, there should be a measure of your marketing budget and your time testing new ideas. And a lot of them will fail, but eventually you'll get to a point where you're like, I know that's going to fail even before I'm going to try it. Matter of fact, I got on a call today. Guy calls me. He's been chasing me down, wants me to look at this product that he's developed. I looked at it. It took me 30 seconds. I'm like, this is not going to work, dude. It's not going to work. And here are all the reasons why it's not going to work. Because we've tried things similar to it, So I don't have to like entertain this guy's proposal and lead him along thinking that it's going to work. It ain't going to work. What he's got is not going to work. So, but I wouldn't have been able to say that had I not failed at so many small little things along the way. So you always have to be kind of pushing the boundary. The risk to that is that if you're always pushing the boundaries, sometimes you can lose who you are. Your company starts to change and evolve into something different. And that's failure. Unless maybe it could be failure, it could be success. I mean, changing your company and moving from one kind of like type of an organization to another might be an evolutionary process in business. But you do take the risk of fundamentally changing who you are, losing where you're grounded, and then from there, losing your company. So my business partner, the guy I mentioned, Seth, is like the rock. Like he's like the rock. Okay. He is dialed in, keeps things, secure, aligned, whatever. I'm out here trying new things. Right. And I'm like, I take something and I say, oh, I think this will work. I take it to him and I say, let's take a look at this. And then he'll look at it and analyze it and go, yeah, let's throw some money and time at that and see if it works.
Yeah.
Or no, it's not. So I have this really healthy business partner that balances me really, really well. So that's another aspect of this, is that you may not be able to do it on your own.
Yeah. I really appreciate that perspective. And part of this, it could just be that I'm now at the time where I'm ready to start taking risks. And I also feel really excited to get partners. I actually have a couple ventures that I'm exploring right now. And so, yeah, I love that. And maybe it has been cultivating even just the skill and tools of letting go, so that when we do fail, you're not failing alone. You're failing as a crew. It's not as at the bottom.
Not as bad.
Yeah. And now I can actually do it, because the book Letting Go by David Hawkins, that book has had just such a profound impact on me over the last year. I read it in August of last year. I think it was August. And man, it's been like the theme of my year. It's been the theme since then. So it's been remarkable, because man, how many things do I just have a tight grasp on, and then there can't be the fullness of its potential. And there actually can't be, there can't even be a real failure, because you're holding on so tightly to it. So it can't grow, but it will, I think, for the most part, end up dying, because nothing can survive being suffocated. So even with, it's like the plants we love so much that we end up killing because we're too focused. It's like, oh my gosh, relinquish control. And then it's funny. It really can flourish as a result of that.
Yeah, I love it.
Adrian, I just love this conversation. I'm really grateful for you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It's been such a pleasure. How can, for any dentists who are listening, how can they get in touch with you?
mysocialpractice.com is our website. You can go there, find out all about us. So you're coming on my podcast next.
I know. What's the name of your podcast again?
It's called Bite Sized, BYTE sized. Bite sized.
Y'all come join us. Well, we're actually are going to stay on here after we stop going live and figure out a date. So I'll put that in the comments of this show.
Cool. Cool.
Sweet. Y'all, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Go follow Adrian at My Social Practice or Bite Size. And we'll go ahead and see you hopefully in the next couple of weeks on his show. But in the meantime, have a wonderful evening. I will see you tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific.